Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, Adam Caplan for our third game preview podcast of the 2022 season. Eagles won the first one, Eagles won the second one, and the Eagles will try to make it 3 in a row on short rest against a division opponent. So that makes this game a little bit more exciting as the Eagles will travel down by bus, not train, right, Adam, to play Washington Commanders?
I heard that's what I heard. Yeah, that's what I heard earlier this week that they were taking bus, which is I don't know. I didn't know the reason for it. But they're doing that. It will be on Saturday after the walkthrough, sometime in the afternoon. So, yeah. Look, the weather though it could storm late Sunday night, so they don't have to worry about that. The weather's starting to change here out east, starting to get a little cooler, cooler.
I anticipate that when we do our pregame show, 10 to noon, from Rivers Casino on Sunday, and we will have Greg Cosell back with us.
Yes.
Great job by Trey Thomas pinch hitting last
awesome.
Monday night, and he'll join us for the post-game show as usual. I anticipate when we do our show, if there is a little rain or perhaps a storm in the forecast, then there might be a reappearance, or maybe the first of the year, of Tropical Storm Caplan.
That's right, man. I'm a stickler for those forecasts hour to hour, so we always look at that. Because weather, look, it does or can impact, particularly with wind, which we got Thursday night here out east. But yeah, look, I'm looking forward to this because Washington is so loaded on offense. It's been years since you see this. And oh, by the way, talked to Greg Thursday night. He's got some interesting stuff on Jordan Davis, and this goes to show you it's about the tape. It's not about grades.
Right.
It's no offense to anyone who's grading, but it's all about what the tape tells Greg. And say it was not pleasant for Jordan Davis, I think would be an understatement. We'll see what Greg has to say, exact what his words. I don't want to speak for him. But basically what he had said on Sunday night or Thursday night on the live stream. Were we on the air then? I think we were. Well, let's put it this way. He said some critical stuff, which the words were interesting. So it's all about the tape. The tape tells him, as you know, it speaks to him.
Right, it does. So I look forward to hearing what Greg has to say about Jordan Davis and about everything that happened in the last game since he couldn't be with us in the pregame show. So it'll be I think it's going to be an extra juicy, extra detail-y type of pregame show. So make sure you check it again. 10 a.m. is the start time on the YouTube, Inside the Birds YouTube platform and our other social media platforms as well. So this game against Washington, Adam, has sort of, I mean, there's plenty of intrigue. It's a division matchup. Washington looks a little better than they've been in the past few years, at least so far. I would say the Eagles are 2-0, so obviously that adds a little spice to it. They've gotten off to one of their best starts in recent history. And then I thought what makes it even more intriguing is a topic that came up 2 or 3 times during our Patreon subscriber chat on Wednesday night. And we had a really good chat with our Patreon subscribers. So we will continue to do that every 2 or 3 weeks or so. So if you're not with us yet on Patreon, please go to patreon.com/InsideTheBirds. Sign up to be a subscriber. You're getting bonus exclusive content. We're going to do a bonus podcast for our subscribers. We just did this bonus Ask ITB live stream. We're giving away tickets. We're giving away merch. We will do a whole lot if you will join us on our ITB Patreon. But the big topic that came up.
Hang on one sec. I'm on every Wednesday on our Discord. Which you definitely mentioned that because that's also another bonus, which I made a decision a week ago. I'm going to do this every Wednesday, and we're going to remind people every Wednesday, 8 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern, on our Discord. You can put it on your phone. You could use Discord. You could download on your phone. You could do it on your tablet, your laptop. I have it on my Android phone, which is actually Samsung, and I also have it on my laptop, and it's great. So, and in fact, I love how you put the link in there. You put the link to the live stream. That was cool. So people just click on it. That was great.
Went right there. It was awesome. So this topic came up in not only the live stream, but also Q&A, who had an excellent podcast this past week. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure you check out Quentin Michael and Jason Avant in their Q&A show on our podcast platform. And that was the added intrigue is that there is sort of this now, you know, you've seen this happen a lot where a team wins a big game. And you could say this about the Vikings week 1. I mean, they played the Packers. That's a division game. They crushed them. They're feeling good. And maybe it was hard for them to come out against the Eagles and match that momentum. And now the question is, can the Eagles, playing a Monday night game where they scored a big win and everything went right and Jalen Hurts looks incredible, can they go now play a division opponent nonetheless on short rest and keep all of that going? We know division games take on a life of their own. We know that it's hard to play a near perfect game and then duplicate it 7 days later, and this is 6 days later.
Yeah, it's funny. I earlier this week, I was talking to organizational sources. Hey, what's the kind of the mood around the team? Are they feeling good? He goes, I got to tell you, they seem to really put it behind them when they came to practice on Wednesday. They're totally focused on Washington because Washington, they won week 1. Yes, they lost week 2, but they almost pulled an amazing comeback, and they have so much firepower and offense. It's kind of hard this early to call it feel like there'd be a letdown. I felt like this had been week 9 or 10 or something. Maybe if Washington was like 4-6 or something, definitely. So I don't feel it. It's so hard to quantify. It's so subjective to say a team had as a letdown. It's really hard to come up with that unless the players actually say it.
Right.
But no, I don't see that at all. I really don't. Now again, this is a relatively young team, which you have to learn. And you and I have used this for 5 years. When this team has had success and then faltered, how they handle success. This is one of the best ways to judge a team. Do they come out flat? Okay. Do they come out flat? Well, they certainly haven't so far. Well, against Detroit they did, and then they threw that in the trash can, and then they took a big lead, then they almost choked it, and then of course this Minnesota game they came out firing, and they completely shut Minnesota down. Like they didn't even want to be there. Talk about bad body language.
Yeah,
Minnesota
it looks
defeated.
like they were done. Yeah. All right, so we'll break this down because this Washington team has some. It's got some weaponry, so we'll get into that. We'll start off with injuries, and of course, if you at home, if you're listening, if you're someone who deals with injuries or pain on an everyday basis, and you need some relief, we always talk about our friends at Freestone Farms CBD.com and using CBD to give yourself that, either get yourself to sleep or to calm yourself down, deal with your pain from either a workout or whatever you got. So remember, you can use the promo code ITB to get 20% off at FreestoneFarmsCBD.com. They are big on being all organic and healthy, and what you're putting into your body is what they say is the most organic CBD you can get. So make sure you use that promo code, like I said, ITB at checkout to get 20% off at FreestoneFarmsCBD.com. Well, it wouldn't be a football year, Adam, if the Washington Commanders did not have some injuries up front. It started early. I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny, but Chase Roulier, who has been one of their good linemen, but injury prone ones, is already on IR with a knee injury. And so already the Commanders are down an important offensive lineman. We know that they've been giving Wes Schweitzer some practice, right? But he's also dealing with a hamstring too. So this thing could go a couple of different ways, Adam.
Yeah, I'm actually, this is interesting. So I'm told that while Schweitzer has taken the most of the ones, what happened last week is the coaches, when they were game playing, they thought Schweitzer was going to be available to back up guard or center or potentially start. But I guess he told them Sunday morning he couldn't go. So that left him a little bit thin. Trey Turner starting, was once like a top 3 guard. He's barely hanging on. He's probably, if you graded 64 starting guards, he's probably in the bottom 10. He's just not that. He's moved on. Pittsburgh, the Chargers, and the Panthers.
Yeah.
They didn't want, none of these teams wanted him, so he's barely hanging on. And he was in Carolina some years ago. But the fact of the matter is, they'd rather start Schweitzer. But so what we're told is, if Schweitzer feels like he's not ready, they probably will sign Wes or promote Wes Martin, either sign him or promote him from the practice squad to go backup guard or center. Now, they just signed Nick Martin, but my understanding is they'd rather go with Wes Martin, go with the team longer.
Right.
And Nick Martin's a long-time starter in the league, but he's kind of fallen hard times the last couple of years, not the same player. And he just got there. So they don't want, remember last year, because you mentioned the offensive line problems. They were down at one point, their 4-string center.
Yeah.
You want to keep the continuity going. You want to keep bringing in guys who don't know the system yet. You like them to get the system down first, be there for a while, then put them in.
I seem to recall, obviously every year is new, but you're right that they had this issue last year. They were down to their sign him off the street free agent center and also down to their sign him off the street free agent quarterback, right? What wasn't Gilbert
Garrett Gilbert, yeah,
Garrett Gilbert started a game against them, and despite that, you and I sort of were flabbergasted by how much time Gilbert had at times to throw in the pocket, considering he's Garrett Gilbert and his center is a backup. That was the Eagles did not do a great job getting pressure in that game. They won the game, but I can't say it's because they got great pressure up the middle when you thought that they would have probably got it from the get go.
And honestly, Washington's got a bottom 10 in the NFL offensive line, maybe even bottom 5. It's not very good. They really were terrible in the first half against Detroit. Wentz also didn't play well in the first half. Then Wentz put the Superman cape on, brought him back, was making big time throw after big time throw after making a couple mistakes. And he brought them back. Charles Leno kind of revived his career, got his extension. He's okay. Andrew Norwell's another guy who signed the biggest contract in NFL history at guard some years ago with Jacksonville and never lived up to it. He's on the back, clearly on the back nine of his career. Cosme's okay at right tackle. Trey Turner, when I mentioned starting at the right guard, and really he's done. So they got some problems here. They don't have very good depth. So look, the Eagles right here, they got to break down that Washington protection. To me, Jonathan Gannon has got and Tracy Rocker, the line coach, figure out a way to break down his protection because it's there to make. And the question is, can they pressure Wentz and make mistakes?
That will be the question. And even with the offensive line in shambles and not being very good, as you mentioned, I will say that Washington's done a good job of scoring points and putting the ball in the air effectively. It's not just passing yards, because that can be an overrated stat. If you're losing every game, you're throwing every game. They actually have some fairly good situational stats offensively that would go to show that they're compensating somehow, and we'll get into it, for their bad offensive line. So we'll get into that further in the show. I have some interesting statistics on that. As far as other injuries are concerned, there was, I think that, well, we know that Chase Young, defensive end, is still not ready to come back. Yep. He's still on what, PUP or IR or whatever?
It's at reserve PUP.
Right.
The hope is he's back by midseason, if not before. Mm-hmm. Daniel Wise, who's one of their top backup D linemen, he's out for the high ankle sprain. He had to play a lot more. In fact, they went with a 5-man front last week a lot. Mm-hmm. He's a key to it because he's wide. He's probably a better 34 defensive line, but nevertheless, he's not going to be able to play. Casey Tuhill, who's like their fourth end. He has concussion. He has to be cleared to play. They're going to get.
I've heard of this Casey Tuhill guy.
Yeah, former Eagle, right?
Right.
They never should have cut him. He's been a good developmental player for him as a backup. And Cam Curl's going to be back from thumb injury. Boy, do they miss him. Mm-hmm. They are giving up a ton of production. The Commanders are 6th worst in terms of yards and receptions over 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks, they're getting crushed. So, getting Cam Curl back certainly will help.
Cam Curl, you can make an argument. He is Dallas, New York. Xavier McKinney's pretty good. You can make an argument that Cam Curl's the best safety in the division. He's really good. He's good. I mean, he's not, when I say really good, he's not, all pro level, but he's a really good player. He's versatile. He can do a whole lot. He can tackle, he can run, he can cover. I mean, he's not perfect, but he's a really good player.
Cosell loves him. Pro, I think, was what, a 7th rounder?
Yeah.
Greg, I guess his rookie tape was really phenomenal. He's been really good ever since, and not having him, they cut Apke before the season started. He's on the practice squad.
Yeah, my Penn State guy.
Yep. So they're very inconsistent in the secondary. William Jackson, I think Greg said he's really good in man, not good in zone.
Yeah.
So they're okay in the secondary. They're nothing special. They're extremely beatable. The Lions got their number. They could not get to Goff last week. It was embarrassing. Goff had a clean game, super clean, 20 for 34 for 256 and 4 touchdowns, and he was never under pressure. They got a little complacent in the second half. I think that's part of it. Mm-hmm. And boy, Detroit ran for a lot of yards. We'll get into that in a second. But the bottom line is, a lot of these matchups favor the Eagles. Offensively, if they could protect, which they should be able to do, Washington does not have a pass rush at this point.
Which amazes me because they have 3 first-round picks on the defensive line. So we'll get into that in a second. As far as the Eagles, their health is pretty good. I know that the only people who were out of practice earlier in the week were Quez Watkins had an illness, but he returned on Thursday. He was limited on Thursday. Avonte Maddox was dealing with a back. He did light work on Thursday as well. It doesn't sound like I was going to say, it doesn't sound like anybody's going to be out for this game. Right. So the Eagles continue to have really, really good health. I mean, obviously they lost Derek Barnett. That's never good. But for the most part, compared to other teams who have, you got Dak Prescott already out for a long time and Trey Lance out for the year and Chase Roulier for the Washington we just said is going to be out for a while. So Eagles, knock on wood, pretty healthy so far.
Yeah, no doubt. In fact, the craziest thing is the team the Eagles are playing next week in Philly, the Jaguars. Only NFL team to go through 1 week without having one player listed in the injury report, not even rested.
Wow.
In fact, as we speak here Friday, so that's 5 straight days that didn't have a player listed on the injury report. That's unheard of.
Not even a rest? Man, those veterans are going to start complaining there
exactly.
pretty
soon. Like you're exactly right. You never see a team go through a week without one player listed. A clean sheet. I kind of look crazy, and kudos to Jeff Ferguson, the head athletic trainer. Fergie comes from the Niners. He went back to college football and came back. Trent Baalke brought him back last year, and he's good, man. And they're pretty healthy, man. When that's the key, if you can have your 22 starters, it gives yourself a chance.
This is why I love doing this podcast and this business with you, because there's only a few. Even I'm going to say this: I'm not even sure Zach Berman, who knows every third string left guard on every team in the NFL and in college, no matter what level. It could be like an FCS team. It could be Southwest Arkansas State. Zach Berman knows who the backup left guard is, right? But only you, I think, know who the team's trainers are, where they came from, where they were in between where they came from and where they are now. So that's pretty awesome. I used to be able to know almost all of the long snappers in the league, and I thought that was pretty
really.
Yeah, I used to be able to name a lot of long snappers. I'll tell you why, real quick, just to bore you with a story. When I was working for the News Journal, covering the Eagles,
you had to do a story.
I had to do the Agate page because we were down copy editors, so I literally had to type in all the rosters, all the stats, I would start it on Monday to be done with it on Friday. The entire Sunday page, the old Sunday paper, would have that whole page that gave you the rosters, the stats, the depth charts, and everything. So in 6 years, you pretty much do every team, and long snappers generally tend to hold on to their job for many years because they're low paid, and it's a pretty simple job compared to other people's jobs in the NFL. So there was a time I could name at least 75% of the team's long snappers.
Poor Trey Junkin. Remember Trey Junkin?
Yes.
You know what? Unfortunately, he's famous for, right?
Oh man, why don't I? Was he with the Packers, by the way?
No, he was Raiders and others.
Oh, Raiders. No, I forget.
Dennis, I'm reasonably sure he was the one who had the bad snap when he was with the Giants.
Yes, that's right. Of course. Yes, yeah. I do remember that now. I knew the name from somewhere. I couldn't remember why. But yeah.
And I hate it for him because he's like one of the worst of his, one of the best of his, whatever, like 15 years, whatever.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he's known late in his career by Giant fans for that bad snap. And that's the thing. All they do is snap it. If you have a bad one, people tend to latch on to it. It's a shame. Right. But
can you imagine if Tony Romo had never made it as a starting quarterback and all he would have been known for was the drop snap?
The slick ball against the Seahawks, right?
Yes, against Seattle.
Yeah. Shiny ball.
That's right. Very slick. They made every excuse in the world up for the fact that he just dropped it.
Well, they changed the rules after that you're allowed to rough them up.
Right. All right, let's get into this matchup. Eagles offense against the Commanders defense. For the life of me, 2 years I'm going to eat crow. And I still don't think it's my fault. I'm going to blame Jack Del Rio.
Don't eat crow. It's disgusting. Go ahead.
Yeah, eat humble pie, whatever, crow, whatever it is. I just see too much talent on that Washington defense. And I know it's talent because I've seen it either with Washington before or like William Jackson with the Bengals to think that they have been this bad for a year and 2 weeks now defensively. I know they don't have Chase Young, but you have Jonathan Allen. You got Deron Payne. We know they're good. We've seen tape of them play well. Cosell loves both of those guys. You got Montez Sweat. Jamin Davis played a good game last week. All right. William Jackson. Maybe there's line coming out of there, but I know he wasn't playing well, but I thought they felt he played a good game last week.
It was better. First week was not good at all. Second week better, but
Gotcha.
he's not. He's still learning. He
Okay,
might
he's got
want
to
to
do
stay
better.
bench.
He's got to do better.
Yeah.
But William Jackson is Cam Curl. We just talked about him being the best safety in the division. There's no reason this defense should suck. I'm sorry, I don't understand.
We talked about this last year. Way too much individual play. Del Rio was not happy until they turned the season around in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of hero ball, and we'll see. I mean, getting Curl back is huge for them because their secondary's got a ton of production.
Right.
I mean, they did week 1 against the Jags, and last week was an absolute disaster. So, look, here's a great thing: best offensive line in football for the Eagles. This should be a relatively high scoring game. This is going to be a fun game to watch.
Mm-hmm.
The plays are there to be made. The Eagles should be able to protect. They rebounded after the rough week 1 because they saw now Del Rio. The Washington plays a lot of man comparatively to other teams.
Mm-hmm.
So if they do that, like usual, the Eagles should do well. If they could protect. I don't know why they couldn't protect. They got their stuff together. Now the Fangio, I don't know what not the Fangio. Ed Donatel,
mm-hmm.
One of the worst coach games I've seen in a long time from a coordinator. I don't know how you back off like that. I just don't understand. For the life of me, I don't know what he was thinking.
Agree.
Hurts was terrific with his accuracy. Not going to take a thing away from him. But can you try to make it harder on a quarterback? But my goodness gracious, it was unbelievable.
And I think he will. I remember last year's games, Washington, it's not like they blitzed like crazy because I think Washington had to play more zone than Jack wanted to last year.
Yes,
for whatever reason,
correct.
They were struggling to execute in man, switch to his own. But still, on third down last year, I recall Washington coming after Hurts more than once or twice. So, again, I don't think they're going to do what the Lions did, but I agree with you. I can't imagine Jack Del Rio is going to watch tape from last week and say, we got better personnel, so we'll just sit in the same zone and hope. I think he's going to have to try to force the issue at times on Jalen Hurts. And he's got good players to do that, athletic front seven to do that.
Hurts, he's so good with his legs, and he's so accurate now. You don't want to say he puts fear in. That's not fair. But hearing what Dan Campbell said on the Monday after the game, Lions head coach, and hearing Ron Rivera talk after the game, and hearing their defensive coordinator Del Rio talk. I mean, they acknowledge this is a challenge playing against Jalen Hurts because now he's got his accuracy under control. He's not bailing,
right,
and he's got good arm strength. He's got enough. He clearly has enough. And with this pass target group, good luck because they handled they figured out the blitz pressure. It took them a while in that game, but overall in the Lions game, they started figuring out as it went along. And then the D coordinator for Minnesota, Donatel, did a terrible job. He backed off. Awful. I don't know what he was thinking. And now this week, you got a defense that has struggled mightily so far. This should be, if they don't bog down, if they don't take the foot off the gas pedal. Let me ask you a question on that. Do you really believe what Sirianni said? Do you think they?
No.
Yeah.
No. He said that they thought they backed off a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't think they did. First of all, I wish he would have just. Again, I think he sometimes has to talk himself into certain things. They only had 4 second half possessions. You don't count the fourth one because that's the last time they had the ball. They're running out the clock, right? So really, you only had 3 second half possessions. They moved the ball fairly well downfield on one of them and had a field goal blocked. Then on the other one where they didn't get anything, it's because Kenny Gainwell dropped a they were putting the ball in the air at that point. They're trying to get more first down and more points.
Which I like.
Bounces off. Yeah, I got no issue with it, but that's not taking your foot off the pedal. Unless he's trying to say we were trying to throw underneath instead of going deep. But no, they were playing the style of defense that you were doing a great job picking them out underneath plenty of times. So I don't buy it. And I don't think he even needed to talk around it. I just think that they had some unluck with not unluck. They did the bad execution with the field goal block and then bad execution with the hands of Kenny Gainwell there.
Oh, on the field goal block, one league source said that he, in his estimation, this guy's played special teams before. He goes, that absolutely was on the operation. Don't put it on the punter. I mean, excuse me, the kicker. Said it was the operation.
It had to be because he came in unblocked, right?
Right.
I couldn't put that on the kicker.
Yeah. But It was the operation. It just they have to clean the thing up. But the field goal kicking and blocking and timing has been great for the last year. If you remember 2 years ago, when this group came in, that's one of the things we said, and we had heard that they were trying to fix the snap to the hold to the time to the kick, which is really bad apparently in 2020, and that's why Elliott struggled so much.
Right.
But he's rebounded so well because they've cleaned that up. That's one part of the special teams they've cleaned up. Then they have this error, so they got to clean that up. And again, they left points on the field. It was one of those games you watch, but how hell did they only score 24 points? They dominated that.
Very good point. Very good point. So this is a game, Adam, I think that the Eagles will see a pretty good test. I don't want to say for the first time, but probably more so than the first 2 weeks for their RPO offense and their ability to run the ball. Listen, their offensive line is great. Their running game is great. But what I can say about Washington is that even though they're underperforming as a whole, those three guys on the front line are going to make it tough, especially the first two, Payne and Allen in the middle there. They have some athleticism at linebacker, even if it's not playing well. They've got some athletic guys so that if Hurts wants to pull and try to run to the edges, I wouldn't surprise if there's a spy waiting for him. We'll see if that works or not. But there's just good athleticism in this Washington front seven. So is Holcomb's one of their
yeah, he's their he'll play. He could be their dime linebacker, inside linebacker. Now, you talk about a spy. If they believed in Jamin Davis, they thought he was mentally ready to handle all the assignments, he'd be perfect. He's got the size.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's an argument to me that being a spy is not as mentally complex. Like, so you're just in the middle of the field and you run where he runs, like
whatever the
you
rules
take his own drop
right.
and you just try to make sure he doesn't get past you. So
because Hurts is something else right now. He's got himself together. He's processing much better. He's seeing it now. Like, for instance, we were talking to Cosell Thursday night, and Greg said, "What was he talking about?" Yeah, well, one of the quarterbacks he was talking about is not seeing it. It's just I forget which quarterback he was talking about. And this is what we were talking about with Hurts last year. He would not see guys open. The design was there, and he would throw to the wrong guy or hold it, throw it out of bounds, and the guy's clearly open. He's not doing that right now. Very few throws for 2 weeks where that's happened. And that's a great sign of maturity and how he's progressing in this scheme. And you're starting to see the marriage between the quarterback and the play caller, Steichen and Hurts. And we'll see. Look, like you said, Washington's got a good front, talented front. They haven't lived up to it.
Right.
But if you can protect, there are big plays there. There's no question.
No doubt about it. It's not going to be a night off for Jordan Mailata just because no Chase Young, because I'm pretty sure Jack likes to move Montez Sweat around a little bit. So I think you'll see Sweat lined up over Mailata. If that's they did that last year, over Mailata and over Lane Johnson at times. But compared to some other teams who can bring it on the right and the left, it feels like whoever he's lined up over, the other guy's got that playoff. I mean, it might be Casey Toohill, it might be that guy White that we mentioned, the backup
Daniel
DN.
White is out.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel Wise, whatever. I mean, no. Whoever it is, it's just not going to be somebody that is a household name.
Oh, they're going with Smith Williams, who was like a fifth end last year.
Oh,
he's
right.
In. Yeah, right. James Smith Williams. So they should have no problem handling this front. They know it well. They've faced them. They've got arguably the best offensive line coach in football. They rebounded nicely. And I'll tell you what, Sanders, we didn't really, my fault for not bringing up the last show. He's looked terrific. He's getting the dirty yards too, the short yardage stuff. He hasn't broken up the super long run, which he's done in the past, but he's been very consistent. People forget how many offensive line problems Eagles had in 20 and 19 due to injury.
Mm-hmm.
They just the nice thing is, this so far this year and for the most part last year, they're more healthy than not, particularly so far this year. And they've got decent depth for what they think it is. Maybe other teams don't think so, but they do. And they're running it well. And the thing that's surprising is this 3-man rotation. Didn't see that happening. We weren't sure. We were wondering, will they use three guys in Hurts or 2 guys in Hurts? It's so far 3 running back in Hurts.
The matchup inside to watch to me is Seumalo versus Jonathan Allen, because there have been a couple of times this year in watching the games where I thought Seumalo, and remember he's still adjusting to right guard instead of left, where he just didn't have his leverage. He had trouble anchoring and maintaining his leverage. And that's usually one of his strengths. That's why he's the right guard and not Jack Driscoll, is because he can kind of dig his feet into the ground and use that strength. But when you're going up against Jonathan Allen, who's 300 and something pounds and equally strong and a first round pick and fast and has a variety of moves. Yeah. So if there was one guy or one matchup that I'm going to have my eye on there and say, this guy could threaten it a little bit, would be Jonathan Allen versus Isaac Seumalo. On the other side, you like the Eagles wide receivers. If Jalen Hurts has time, you'd have to like what they can do. Actually, Dallas Goedert is the matchup I really like. I just think funny, this is the time for him.
Yeah, the Washington has given up a ton of production to receivers, but also some to not a lot to tight ends because it's all going to the receivers.
Right.
But here's the thing: when now Carl's back, we'll see what they do. They stick James Davis on him. They stick Cam Curl on him. Curl could cover. You could play him. You could play him inside the box. You could play him deeper.
Mm-hmm.
But it's to me, it's the Eagles receivers versus the Washington secondary and safeties. They should have their way. Again, only 2-game sample, but Christian Kirk got him. You saw Amon-Ra St. Brown crushed him.
Oh my God, they made him look like Cooper Kupp in that game. I mean, he had like 13 catches or something crazy.
Exactly. He's a possession receiver, and he crushed them. They had no answer for him on crossers. My goodness gracious!
Did you see he also had two carries for like 60 yards in that game?
Yes, the 50. Yes.
Oh my God! Talk about the ultimate weapon there.
And I wonder, it's funny you say that. I know they don't have Rager anymore. They didn't work with Rager when they tried that. Because it's now on tape. Do they try, an end around with Devontae Smith? Do they use Gainwell? Gainwell?
Why not AJ Brown? I mean, he's built like a running back. I wouldn't mind giving him a jet sweep.
Yeah, I don't know if he's ever done one. I have to look that up. But Quez, maybe. Sure. I'm just, again, this is on tape now, so I'm just wondering if they try it.
No, that's a great point. Something to watch. Or if not that, some kind of gadget that, because I didn't see those runs. I don't know if they were just straight jet sweep or if they were sort of, did he line up in the backfield, take a draw and nobody realized he was, because everybody wears different numbers now. So I'll have to go take a look on tape and we'll talk about it on the Sunday. We'll ask Greg Cosell.
Greg will know.
If there's a tell now or something that Washington didn't do well, that could be misdirection, for example. So it'll be pretty interesting. So yeah, we talked about that. And Dallas Goedert historically does well against Washington. And so did remember Zach Ertz used to tear Washington up earlier in his career. So there's something about Eagles tight ends where they always seem to do well against Washington.
Oh, the back end of the back-to-back, if I'm not mistaken, Goddard destroyed them. Destroyed Washington. Yes, he did. Wow. In the second game last year, 9 targets, 7 receptions for 135, equivalent 45-yarder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he is unbelievable, leading the NFL tight ends in yards per catch at 17.8, which is ridiculous for tight end. That's receiver. In fact, you'd love that if that was receiver. That's like vertical receiver numbers.
It's crazy.
It's only going to get bigger, by the way.
Definitely.
Bigger plays. I'm talking about big scene plays. Could happen this week.
Yeah, so I think you and I are both on the same page. We sort of feel like as long as protection's there, and it doesn't even have to be as good as it was against Minnesota, because that was like, I started actually, I don't know if I told you this, but I whipped out the Trey Thomas does the clock
stopwatch.
I was like, this is crazy. I mean, I call it the stopwatch. I really just use the iPhone stopwatch, but I was just starting to watch, and I'm like, I cannot believe how much time Jalen Hurts is being given to throw based on this soft coverage. So I started bringing out the stopwatch, and there were times I'm like, whoa, 3.6, that's ridiculous. You expect that when he's rolling out, and but it was really long time.
I asked our friend John DiFilippo this a couple years ago. I forget wherever he's coaching. It might have been Chicago or Minnesota, but I asked him, I said, hey, what snap to release, what are you looking at? He goes, no more than 2.3. He goes, I want to, depending on how many, like 5 step is 1.5. 3 step might be 1.5. 5 is 1.7 to 2.0, and 7 is 2.0 to 2.3. He goes, I don't want it any more than 2.3. I remember him distinctly telling me that.
Sure.
If we get a chance to talk to him again, I'll ask him to review it.
But
that's crazy. They're lying. And the great thing is, I was just, I was able to see the tape earlier this week, and I just, you and I spoke to 3 people who saw it, at least 3 people by now, if not 4. And they all said he's so decisive. It's like he knew where the ball was going.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's not an anticipation thrower; he's a timing thrower,
Yes.
and you're starting to see him way more consistent. So a lot of that stuff we heard about in the offseason, because you and I wondered how real is it? Because a lot of it's OTAs are double A baseball, triple A's training camp. This is the majors here,
Mm-hmm.
and he's hitting the fastball.
Absolutely. All right. So again, I think you and I both agree he gets protected. They're going to put some points on the board because Washington has allowed a significant number of points already in the early. Who did they play week 1? It was Jacksonville.
Yes, and yes,
and they lost that game, right? They
won.
They won. They came
back
back to win, but they were down.
Yeah.
Do you remember the final score off the top of your head?
It was tough. Yeah, in fact, that's what
I thought it was like 26-22 or something. Am I crazy?
Score. Yeah, it was Washington week.
Yeah, I just remember that Washington was down, and then
22. Yes.
So yeah, 28-22.
Wentz does what he does. He turns it over and he brings them back. He had the crazy. Trayvon Walker had the unbelievable interception. He threw 2, but
right,
he's so aggressive. And I thought John Gannon had something very interesting on Thursday. How he talked about. I don't know if you picked this up. I'm fascinating. I've never heard a coach say this. Like there are tells. There are voids in the defense. He actually talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they try to shore up. I don't have the quote in front of it. I just thought it was interesting how in every defense, yes, there's some sort of void. You can't cover every blade of grass.
Right.
There's something in your coverage that's a void. And with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, this is a guy who moves so well.
Mm-hmm.
You hope once he played better last week. Week 1 was a little tough, as Yvonne pointed out to us on our pregame show last week, but he was much better this game.
Mm-hmm.
You have to cover more ground here. Washington is so deep, and we'll get to their offense in a second. But the Eagles here are they're gonna spread them out. They were heavy 11 last week. I expect them to be a heavy 11 team. Week 1, maybe because they thought Aaron Glenn would blitz it, he did, and he got them.
Mm-hmm.
Even if Jack Del Rio decides to blitz because they play a lot of man, all of that.
Yeah,
you don't need you just protect. You
or
you
chip,
now know.
like chip. Yeah. Just use your tight end and you're back to chip before they get out there. Yeah, no, I agree.
You can play 11. That's ridiculous.
I agree. All right, we'll get into the defense in a second. We've been telling you about this really fascinating concept. It's been around for a little bit, but it's the sports stock market where you can buy stock, high or low, in a player that you love or even a player that you don't like and you want to profit off of. Mojo is an app that gives you the opportunity to do just that, to make your portfolio by investing in players. They have over 300 skill players across the NFL, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and you're allowed to get a share price of each one of your choice. And it works all off season long because it's not just about player performance, it's about what happens to them. It's like real stock, it's about what's going on with them off the field, even when the season's not going on. So you've seen Adam and I both tweet about certain players. We had last week. I was Miles Sanders. Who was your guy? Was it AJ Brown, I think?
No, you had Sanders. That was a good one.
Yeah, I had Miles Sanders, but I thought you had AJ Brown. But either way,
yeah, it's an offensive player.
Yeah. So it's just it's an awesome kind of thing to be involved with that combines. Basically, if you think you're really smart and you think you're good at the stock market and you could apply that to sports and players, like anybody can buy stock in, say, like I don't know, give me a Cooper Kupp, but of course, you're not going to profit off that. You're going to pay a high price because he's already good. But the challenge is, can you build a portfolio of players who are going to be good, buy them low, sell high, and make yourself some money? And I think that's a fascinating concept. So you go to Mojo. It's available in New Jersey on iOS, and just by downloading the app, you've got a chance to win up to 10,000 in free shares of player stock. We'll put the link in our description box for this podcast and on YouTube so that you have a chance to win $10,000 in free shares of player stock. You got to be 21 and physically located in New Jersey to trade on Mojo. And if you have a gambling problem, help's available at 1-800-GAMBLER.
Just think of this. Jahan Dotson, if you would have got him early.
Well, I did get him in my draft, by the way, very, very late in my fantasy draft.
Oh, I have 3 or 4 leagues out of my 6. I have Dotson. I by the way, I don't think he'll do as well this week based on the way the Eagles corners are playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be hard for him. I don't know that I play him this week, but I'm just saying overall, for fantasy, or if you're in the fantasy stock market, boy, what a buy he would have been to start the season.
I kind of think it's a high scoring game, and I feel like the Eagles will have like a double digit lead at some point, and Washington will be forced to pass, and they'll probably, you know, how Carson is. He's going to look like Chase Daniel for the first quarter and a half, and then he's going to look like Aaron Rodgers for the half the second quarter, and then the third quarter, and the fourth quarter he's going to look like something in between, like, you know, like I don't know. Can't even think of anything right. Derek Carr. So yeah. That's why I kind of get the feeling in the second half he's gonna have to air it out a little bit, and he's good enough to catch Jahan one or two times for like 15, 25 yards, something like that. So we'll see. That parlays well though into us talking about the Washington offense against the Eagles defense. So despite the offensive line issues that we talked about, Adam, the Commanders have been able to move the ball through the air, and it's not just because they're passing because they're behind, but some really interesting stats I dug up was that they are one of the best teams so far in third down and in red zone. In fact, I think they are 5 for 5 in red zone, meaning they scored a touchdown on 5 trips to the red zone, all 5 trips to the red zone, which is pretty for a team that doesn't have a good offensive line. That's actually pretty tough to do.
It is. They were 3 for 3 last week. Boy, Wentz. It's amazing Wentz put up the numbers he did. He had 59 yards at half.
Mm-hmm.
He took 4 sacks. He took the safety. It looked like, bad Carson Wentz game.
Yep.
And then he put a Superman cape on, and he hung in there. The guy was mentally tough. It was so bad. Mm-hmm. They couldn't run the safety. Like Gibson had a bad game. And their line had everything could go wrong, and I think they were down with like 22-0 at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was 22-0. Yeah. And then they just came out and made it 22-15. We're like, Detroit, could this be another choke by them? But they held on.
Right. So they're averaging 307 passing yards per game, which is second in the NFL. And I don't see that as the most significant stat because, again, when you've been behind in both games, you have to pass. So not that it's easy, by the way. I would say that the interception percentage, Carson has 3 picks. People are make it sound like he's got 8 or 9. He's not in the top 2 or 3 in interceptions. He does make mistakes, but you know, I was listening to some of the callers like, "Oh, he's already got 3 picks. He makes so many mistakes." And I'm thinking like, you know, for the number of times that they've passed the ball and what they're doing, that's not really it. Like that's not helping your argument. There are guys who have more interceptions.
I talked to Greg Thursday night. No, he said he's played well. Like he's aware that he's had some picks. He said one of them definitely was not on him.
Right.
2 of them you could say were.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's brought the team back. The defense is, I don't want to say they're not competitive. They've been bad, the defense.
Yeah.
He's had to throw anyway.
Right.
This is not what really, the thing is though, I don't know if Scott Turner really wants to do all this, throw as much as he has to, but because Brian Robinson, which they got shot, was going to be okay. Antonio Gibson had to take over. Mm-hmm. And Gibson's not a natural running back. This is, the word around the team is, here's a guy who only played running back 1 year in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of was ahead of the schedule year 1, and he really fell off last year. Overworked, had the fractured shin, didn't look good. Lost his confidence. Brian Robinson clearly beat him out, and Robinson, unfortunately, got carjacked.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God he's going to be okay, and he should be ready after he serves the 4 games on the NFI. And they need him back, but they have no running game right now. Gibson really struggled last week. Now, he caught a ton of passes. Week 1 led him in receptions.
Right.
But they have no run game, and they're forced to throw the ball more. And they have, by the way, they weren't like this last year. They are a heavy 11 personnel team because they have the talent to do it.
They absolutely have the talent for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I mentioned, they are 3rd in the NFL in third down percentage at 56% and 1st in red zone, 5 for 5. They are leading the NFL in receptions or 20 or more yards with 10 through 2 weeks. That's pretty good. And they are 2nd in the NFL in receptions of 40 or more yards. They've had 2. So again, we can talk about I feel like their offensive line is hurting them more in the run game where they can't, a guy like Antonio Gibson, who's not a very good natural running back, doesn't probably have a very good lanes to choose from anyway, but it certainly hasn't really hurt them yet in the passing game. Obviously it's only 2 weeks, but that just gives people an idea of what to expect with this Washington team. They are more prolific now than they've been in quite some time. Even when they won the division a few years ago with Tyler Heineke, they weren't prolific offensively. In fact,
Taylor
they were
Heineke,
7-9, right? Taylor Heineke. Yeah.
That was one of those like, unbelievable stories. Guy literally comes off the couch,
Right.
saves the day. But as you said, in fact, they almost beat the Bucs who won the Super Bowl that year in that wild card game. But the couple of stories here. What's been really positive talking to Washington is Curtis Samuel, who was a guy that Ron Rivera and Turner had in Carolina. They really like this guy. Now they're paying him 11 and a half million this average per year. 11 and a half million is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll run the ball, end arounds, jet motion.
Yeah.
They'll have him play the slot. Now, the area where he struggles is on deeper routes. He's unable to fight off the defender, but he's incredibly gifted in the slot and getting yards after the catch inside.
Mm-hmm.
He missed just about all of last season with groin surgery. Great training camp.
Yeah.
For the most part, he had a little soreness, so they backed off, but he's been great. McLaurin, your guy Dotson, who can't even get on the field because they're so deep is Dyami Brown.
Oh, Dyami Brown, that's right. And I thought he was
good.
pretty good last year.
He was. I mean, did a decent job after a slow start, but they're so deep. And now that that Logan Thomas is back, he scored last week. He's a huge target, 6'7", former quarterback. John Bates from Boise is a good backup tight end. And you just mentioned Cam Sims, who's 6'5". McLaurin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is what's coming. They're going to spread the Eagles out, and they have to hold up. They've got a lot of versatility here. This is a tough matchup for the Eagles secondary, but they've got the talent to live up to it.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I think that's really the fascinating matchup of the game is the Eagles corners versus the Washington receivers. Now, the untold story of that is the pressure that you get.
Yes.
Because as good as those corners are, the receivers are going to win if the corners don't have a little help from the front seven. And we're going to have this discussion by the end of this game about whether or not the Eagles are in trouble because they can't generate four-man pressure and have to blitz all the time, and whether or not Jonathan Gannon can call enough blitzes to compensate, because we've seen him call blitzes, but he's still not Todd Bowles or anything like that. He's just doing a good job of being situationally aggressive when he has to, and he'll have to do that against Carson Wentz.
Yeah, the guy that we didn't talk much about, we glanced over him. Josh Sweat had a terrific game. We talked about how he played inside.
Right.
He had at least 3 pressures.
Mm-hmm.
He is tough, man, because not a lot of things he does not show up in stats. It's not just a run force player. It's making the quarterback move off the spot. Sometimes he doesn't get credit for, like, teams look at pressures a little different than PFF. Well, they use their stuff. They use all of them. They think they're pretty accurate, I'm told, by a couple teams.
Mm-hmm.
But they think, I know people who grade the tape thought that Sweat had a terrific game and pushed the pocket. And then, as I said earlier, we're going to have some good stuff on Jordan Davis from Greg on Sunday's show.
Yep.
Tui Pelotu's a guy that you got to watch. We talked about him really big time. Now, he was much better in game one.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a guy that's got Greg told us this after the draft. He said, no one really knows this about him, but the guy could rush. He could push the pocket a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to see, he only played 18 snaps, but the guy's got it. In fact, Davis played technically 3 more snaps, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if now Tui Pelotu winds up playing over him.
All right.
Davis started the second half in that front that they used, but Davis is not. People can need to cool down on Davis. What people say is happening really is not happening. He's not playing at the level people think.
I can't wait to talk to Greg Cosell about this on the pregame show. So that'll be fascinating. Your point on Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat reminds me a lot. He's not built like him, but he reminds me of Brandon Graham and how he's not going to have 12 to 15 sacks. At least he hasn't yet. But he's really good at, as you said, pinching the pocket, moving the quarterback off his spot. He'll get the 8 to 10 that Brandon always gets every year, at least when Brandon was in his prime. And he's good against the run. He does those things, and he can move inside, as you saw him playing as a down lineman-like role. I just think that he's sort of that production-wise, they're similar in what they bring. You don't always hear their name. They're not always among the sack leaders in the NFL, but they really are good at what they do. And they're very consistent at what they do. On the other area of the line that I think the Eagles have to win, and you brought up the name already from the other side, is that Javon Hargrave has to win against Trey Turner. and he has to win to the point where it's a 4-man rush and you're pinching the pocket and you're moving Carson Wentz around. Because the issue with bringing more blitzes against Carson Wentz is, yes, he will screw up at times, but he's also going to burn you at times in a way that probably Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff wouldn't, because he's got the athleticism and the arm to really, and the weapons around him to do it. And he's not afraid like those other two. He will take the hits and he will keep coming after you. So if you're blitzing, yeah, you're going to get to Carson and you hope he throws a pick or fumbles, but he's also going to put 2 or 3 deep downfield against you. And in a close game, a division game, you don't want that. So what I think Jonathan Gannon would love to do, Adam, is show a lot of pressure and then back off at the last second and hope that the 4-man rush wins more consistently.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what his approach is going to be, because Gannon threw the house at him. It wasn't the total number of snaps. It was just the way the zone blitzes, going through the 2 middle, the A and B gaps, just going through the middle of the Vikings offensive line. How aggressive will he be? He should be aggressive. And we were talking about on our last show that Eagles are really going to have, if they don't blitz, I don't know they could win anymore, because they don't. Sweat's is a good pass rusher, don't get me wrong, and he's so long, but he doesn't seem to win consistently unless they play wide 9.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the sort of like the difference. I asked Greg, because the people we spoke with, they didn't mention the wide 9 because they mentioned it last week. I'll ask Greg what he thought, but I'm curious. And by the way, Nakobe Dean's really not playing because Edwards has been phenomenal.
Oh, Edwards has been great.
And he actually, and Edwards blitz great, but I'm really curious if we'll use Dean as a blitz.
Mm. Well, but it comes back to me is that if Hargrave and Fletcher Cox, I should have said this, if Hargrave and Cox cannot win more against this backup center that's going to play, whoever it winds up being, and Trey Turner, that's not a good sign. I really hope if we're talking about that at the end of the game on Sunday, then it's not going to be fun for the Eagles, because those guys are paid a lot of money to be able to win one-on-one battles.
They are. And Hargrave was so good last year after he got over his injuries.
Yeah, and he really hasn't been dominant yet.
No, maybe it's just 6 weeks off. I don't know. One thing on Trey Turner. So I was told that the reason why the 2 teams, Carolina and San Diego, the Chargers, gave up on him on his butt, on his backside too much. Like this is never, when he was elite, you would never hear that once. Way too many times, particularly with the Chargers. The tape was really bad. Like you're like thinking you can't play anymore. When you're consistently on your backside as a lineman, you're pretty close to being done.
Mm-hmm.
So and the Steelers, who have got all sorts of problems at guard, they don't want it back.
Right.
So
this has all the makings of Carson getting sacked 6 times, maybe fumbling once, but also throwing like 3 passes of 40 or more yards for touchdowns. So it'll be really interesting, and that'll close off our Eagles defense against the offense. You're right, TJ. There's not much to say about linebackers because we've talked about them so much. They're playing well, as you said, Adam, and you were accurate. They're not embarrassing the team. If anything, it's the opposite. You're actually impressed with the play of Eagles linebackers for now, which is an incredible thing to say. Although long-awaited as well.
Yeah, well, it's so funny growing up in this town, and Buddy Ryan would never want to play a game. It's like a god here.
Yeah.
Look, he was funny. I enjoyed him, but he didn't understand offensive football. It was actually pathetic.
Yeah.
Jaws tells some incredible stories. So I've talked to a bunch of players over the years who played for Buddy. If he just would have had a plan for offense with Randall might have actually made it, but he never had one. And then Buddy got fired, and Rich Kotite was absurd. He did see eye to eye with Randall, but this is a fascinating matchup because they have so much. Both teams, if you like offensive football, have so much firepower. It's going to be fun, man. I mean, I think we've pretty much covered everything on the here. I guess
you don't even really worry, at least as much, I think, about what they've got at safety with Chauncey and Marcus, and the small size there in the back end, because Washington doesn't run the ball very well, and I can't imagine they're going to change that up. And if anything, the Eagles have been burnt by who's their pass catching guy. All of a sudden, his name is it McKissick still? No. Who?
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. Thank you. Yeah,
McKissick.
He spurned the Bills after agreeing to deal. He came back.
Right
now, Wentz. Greg said, "Hey," he said he and I have a running joke because I'll say Wentz will never check the ball down, and every time I'm right, and then he goes, hey, guess who checked the ball down this week? I said, aha. He checked it down to Gibson in week 1 and McKissick. So I was all right, good. Now
I did notice that. I had the same thought. I'm like, wow, Carson must have learned that. He must be checking it down a lot with Gibson.
I know.
And
Greg said it's funny. When I ran to Scott Turner, we had a good laugh ago when I was at their camp. He goes, no, he's doing it. I'm like, okay, we'll see. And he is.
There you go. All right, at least for 2 weeks. All right, that'll wrap it up for Eagles offense versus Washington defense. We're going to get to our game picks first. We're going to tell you about our friends at Sky Motor Cars and our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They are enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and online, right? No, on Twitter, at PHL Sports Nation. We'll pause a minute, real quick second, for another word from our great sponsors, including, like I said, our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you happen to go into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get the best deal. And of course, you can visit them at skymotorcars.com as well. All right, the moment of truth is upon us. Adam, I will start with you. Well, actually, let me go really quickly. I keep forgetting to do this right off the bat, but I wanted to go get an updated line and total on the game from our friends at Bet Rivers, where we'll be doing the game. It was a 6.5 was the highest I saw this week. Now I wonder if the offensive line issue, especially at center, is going to change that. As I'm checking right now for the matchup, it is now Eagles are favored by 6.
6. Okay, it's crazy.
47.5 is the total, by the way.
47.5. Okay, that's interesting. So it opened at 1 in May.
Right.
After the schedule came out.
In May.
I look at that stuff because I laugh. Because I was telling people with the over-unders, the 2 to get, with the Panthers over 6.5, that doesn't look very good, though they play two games, tight games. The Baker Mayfield's got to play better. And the big one was like Eagles over 9, take that to the bank. There's no way they won't be over 9. Obviously, they're 2-0. You and I talked in May about how good the roster was. We were on it immediately. We're like, this is one of the NFL's best rosters. Greg agreed with us, and they're right there. Now I know some people bring down a letdown. I'm going to say no. I'm going to trust this team, and I'm going to pick the Eagles to win on the road. And I didn't even know what the over-under was. I have it 27-20 Eagles.
27-20. So you have the Eagles covering by 1 point, and 47 means you are taking the under just by a little bit.
I got them both. I'm 4-0 now on picking the Eagles. I had them over week 1. I had whatever this. I guess I don't know what the spread. What was it? 3.5. I
think it got down to 2.5 before.
Because I was. It was when the okay. So I'm talking about the line that Friday.
Yeah.
But I had it. I got kind of lucky because I had it under, but the second half, it was 31 points at halftime. I'm like, oh, I got this one on. And then no one scored in the second half. But this seems like aerial fireworks to me. The weather's going to be fine. It may, as of Friday morning, it may rain like late in the day, but it's not going to impact the game. There's no wind to speak of, so this is going to be a fun game. I'm looking forward to this. For those of you who are going, I'm sure there'll be a ton of Eagle fans because there always are in Landover, Maryland.
It'll be like 50-50. I mean, at some point last year, the Washington Commanders were being booed, or football team last year. They were being booed by the entire stadium, which meant that they were getting booed by their fans and the Eagles fans.
Well, will Wentz get booed?